Here's the Ford Transit story. They made a van, people bought it, and it became, as Ford put it, the backbone of Britain and many other countries besides. Okay, there's a little more to the story than that. But like Hoover, Transit has become a byword for any van, and it's sold in its millions. The Transit has been the #1 selling van in the UK since it launched in 1965. But how did Ford hit upon such a winning combination? And how have they managed the almost impossible feat of always producing the right van for the job? This is the Ford Transit story. The Transit name was born as part of a rebranding exercise. Ford of Germany had branded its vans with the FK moniker for Ford Köln or Cologne. But soon they found multiple vans in this line had some serious defects. The only one that didn't, the FK 1000, was quickly rebranded as the Ford Taunus Transit in 1961, using the Taunus name from its family car range. Ford UK had been producing a similar sized van, the Thames 400e, since 1957. It was good enough, but was being beaten in the market by rival General Motors' Bedford CA van. With Ford in Germany duplicating effort making the same vehicle, Ford sought to unify the next van around one design, headed up by Ford Europe. It wasn't that the 400e was only sold in the UK and the Taunus Transit in Germany. The 400e was assembled in Denmark and sold there as a left-hand drive version, and the Taunus Transit was sold in Portugal. In many other European countries, both models were sold alongside each other, adding to the confusion. With Europe uniting under the banner of the EEC in 1957, pledging to reduce trade barriers, it seemed to make sense to simplify and save development costs with one European Ford van. By 1961, the new project, dubbed Red Cap, was given the go-ahead. Detroit sent over a supervisor to ensure both UK and German design offices would cooperate successfully. This would be the start of many collaborations that would see a wholly unified Ford lineup by the 1970s. The 400e had been disliked due to its size and flat-fronted design. The new van would have a wider stance, which gave it a more planted look on the road, and the style had a bit of American flair about it. And with a rear axle borrowed from Ford's car range and a wider and longer size, it would do just that. The increase in size would help payload capacity compared to the Bedford CA, as would moving the engine to the new pig snout engine bay at the front, which designers thought made the van look like a little pig. To reuse as many parts as possible from the Ford parts bin, the Transit would use transmissions from its car range, and it would use an alternator instead of the traditional dynamo. And to keep the engine bay size to a minimum, the Transit would use the short V4 Taunus and new Essex engine that would appear on the future Capri. Those engines would get the van to motorway cruising speeds on the new faster 1960s roads. By using car components, Ford was saving on development budget, and the mass-produced components were cheaper to produce. A diesel was offered, but as it was larger, it had a larger bonnet. But that long bonnet could also hide something special, in this case the 3-litre Essex V6 out of the top-of-the-line Ford Capri. It was used for customers that needed high performance, such as ambulances or for the police. With drivers using these vans all day, Ford realised that they needed to focus on ergonomics just as much as they did on their range of cars. In short, the van had to be more car-like, with reduced engine noise and heat, a better driving position, and it needed to be easier to get in and out of, which some drivers were doing many times every day. Like the Mini, released just a few years before, the Transit would be a step change in design that would revolutionise the industry. Ford's Langley factory, home of Hurricane and Spitfire production during the war, was chosen to produce the Transit. On the continent, it would be produced at Ford's Genk factory in Belgium, and soon both factories were at full capacity keeping up with demand, with the combination of Ford's excellent marketing team and a van that could quite frankly sell itself. It soon had 20% of the UK van market and was Britain's best-selling van. The 60s were a time of change, and the Transit captured the public's interest. It wasn't just a boring old van. And it wasn't just a panel van either. Ford started offering the Transit as a pickup and a minibus. The popularity of the Transit meant long waiting times, which meant a robust second-hand market, which fueled further demand. To haul goods in the UK in the 1960s, you needed a licence, which was sometimes hard to come by, as often the people handing them out were the competition. But you only needed a licence if your vehicle was over 3.5 tonnes, and the Transit was way below this, so one-man band hauliers started up, driving day and night and undercutting the competition. With the van a hit, production expanded to Australia in 1966, initially at Homebush near Sydney, then later to Broadmeadows near Melbourne. The following year, in 1967, production opened up in Turkey and South Africa. Ford continued to advertise the Transit throughout the 1960s, and they used the underpinnings from a GT40 to turn the Transit into Supervan that ripped up racetracks in the early 1970s. But it wasn't all good news for Ford. Thieves found it an excellent getaway van with the ability to hold 5 burly men and all the gear they'd just nicked, plus excellent speed and car-like handling. By 1972, it was estimated that the Transit was used in 95% of all bank raids. No wonder then that the police dubbed it Britain's most wanted van. But it didn't stop them from using it themselves because, well, it was so versatile. UK production moved from Langley to Southampton as the old factory just couldn't cope with demand. Production started up in Amsterdam in 1975. The unpopular and underpowered 43 brake horsepower diesel engine was replaced by Ford's York unit. To give it more power on the other side of the globe, Australians fitted the 6-cylinder engine from the Ford Falcon. The Transit facelift, codenamed 1978.5 by Ford, would arrive, funnily enough, in 1978, right on schedule. The nose was extended to accept updated engines, and most drivers plumped for Ford's popular Pinto unit seen in cars such as the Cortina. Australia again got a 6-cylinder, in this case the 4.1 litre diesel. And with the boxy Cortina being launched, the new style fitted right in. The dashboard was updated from the Spartan 1965 design, and it borrowed many components from the Cortina. With increased Transit popularity, there were now 6 body styles: van, combi, chassis cab, parcel van, bus and crew bus. All of these were available in short and long wheelbase versions. Once you'd pick from this, there were 32 different door combinations and 6 different axle ratios to choose from. And of course, Ford offered the Transit with 4-wheel drive in 1982. With Ford leading the market, the sheer volume they were selling allowed them to offer van combinations the competition just couldn't do, which of course became a virtuous circle with more and more people flocking to buy a Transit. And for all you people who believe Americans didn't land on the moon, Ford's marketing team provided documentary proof that the moon landings were faked by using the set for their marketing material. With a flexible chassis, it was a matter of time before the body was used for a motorhome or RV. One such example was the 1981 Hymer Transit Clubmobile, and Ford themselves used the exclusive gear name for their 9-seater minibus just a year later. It featured full carpeting, velour interior and a sunroof. The Transit received another small facelift, and the aging York engine was reworked as the DI or direct injection. In 1985, 20 years after the original Transit hit the roads, the 2 millionth rolled off the production line in Southampton. It's a testament to the original Transit design that it took 21 years for a full redesign to appear. Codenamed VE6 and designed by Ford design lead Uwe Barnson, it arrived in 1986. It got better aerodynamics, the suspension was tweaked to improve handling, but one thing that didn't change were the engines. They were carried over from the previous generation Transit. Replacing a vehicle that has stood the test of time is tough, and second acts can often go wrong, but Ford understood what made the Transit a big seller: durability, versatility and great value for money. To borrow a Ford tagline from more recent times, it was built Ford tough. Ford refined the second generation Transit with an update to the 3-litre Essex engine in 1989 due to emissions regulations, and fully independent suspension in 1992, the first time Ford had used that on their van since the Thames 400e in the 1950s. With the second generation, Ford didn't wait 13 years before giving the Transit a facelift. This time, it only took them 9 years. The update looked subtle, but the nose was all new along with the dashboard, and the base 2-litre engine was lifted from the Ford Scorpio. Luxury items like air conditioning, electric windows, central locking, and airbags were added to make this more than just a basic cargo carrier. With Ford's minibus version of the Transit moving up market, they wanted to differentiate it from their panel vans, so renamed the smaller 8 to 9 person version as the Tourneo. By this stage, it was essentially a large MPV anyway, with a length just 4 inches longer than the Toyota Previa minivan. 1995 wasn't just the launch of the Transit facelift, it was 30 years since Transit production began, and Ford celebrated with a limited edition Hallmark model. Ford started production of the Transit in China in collaboration with Jiangling Motors, satisfying a need for a dependable van in this growing market. The vans use Mitsubishi and Isuzu engines, offering a relatively underpowered top speed of just 68 miles an hour. By the late 1990s, the Transit was so common in the UK, Ford was marketing it as the backbone of Britain. And this was a time when the phrase white van man entered the British lexicon. He was a brash, inconsiderate tradesman, considered the scourge of the road. And of course, he drove a white panel van, of which most in the UK were Transits. 2000 brought the third generation of Transit, with styling cues from Ford's new Edge design. This was a design language first seen on the Ford Ka that used intersecting arcs to, in Ford's words, create surface tension by adding creases to soft aerodynamic shapes. The DuraShift automatic transmission moved the controls from the traditional shifter to buttons on the dashboard, something that's surprising other car companies haven't thought of doing. And the myriad of Transit options just continued to increase, with high and medium roof variants. By now, production was happening in many more parts of the world, as Ford started selling the Transit all around the globe. For the first time, the new van wouldn't be designed in Europe. The hope was to launch the vehicle in North America, and although this didn't come to pass, it was designed there. And for the first time, the Transit would be available with front-wheel drive, as well as the traditional rear-wheel drive. It got the latest Ford petrol and diesel engines, giving increased fuel economy and performance. So much performance, in fact, that the 2.4-litre diesel was famously raced around the Nürburgring by Sabine Schmitz on Top Gear. She attempted to match Jeremy Clarkson's sub-10-minute figure laid down in a turbo diesel Jaguar S-Type, but just missed it with 10 minutes and 8 seconds. But for a stock panel van, it was a phenomenal time. With a Transit name synonymous with vans, at least in Europe, Ford launched the Transit Connect in 2002. Using many parts from the Ford Focus, it was produced in Turkey, Romania and Spain. In 2010, it was imported into North America, where it's been relatively successful. To get around trade tariffs originally brought in to protect companies like Ford, every Transit Connect starts life in Turkey as a Tourneo Connect leisure activity vehicle. It's then imported into the USA, stripped of all the leisure parts in a warehouse in Baltimore, and sold on as a light van. For many years, the parts, such as the rear seats, were recycled, read, thrown in the bin. But after many years of litigation with the US government over exploiting a tax loophole, Ford agreed to return the parts to Europe for reuse. 2002 was the end of the line for Ford's Genk factory in Belgium, which had produced Transit since 1965. Production was moved to an expanded factory in Turkey. By 2005, the Transit had reached 40 years in production, and it was in this year that the 5 millionth Transit rolled off the production line in Southampton. The Transit got its traditional mid-cycle facelift in 2006, with higher, more imposing headlights and grille, plus reworked rear lights. The experiment with automatic transmission buttons on the dashboard was over, with Ford reverting to the traditional stick. Maybe this is why no one has tried those dashboard buttons. Anyway, engines were again updated with the latest 4 and 5-cylinder engines from Ford's other car offerings. It really is quite amazing how Ford could power such a heavy vehicle plus cargo with small, fuel-efficient car engines. And a Transit Sport van was launched with Ford GT40 style racing stripes plus alloy wheels. Not quite sure what market Ford was going after with this product, but does it really matter? It was just wonderfully mad. And after winning International Van of the Year for a second time in 2007, yes, there is such an award. It's celebrated with the one-off XXL stretch van made by slamming two Tornio minibuses together, presumably at high speed. It also expanded into Mexico. Transit was slowly becoming seen and produced all over the world, with North America being an obstinate holdout. Americans were still driving the E-Series and of course their beloved pickups. The fourth generation Transit was launched at the Detroit Auto Show in 2013. The new edge styling was replaced by Ford's new Kinetic design language, and the interior was influenced by the recently launched Ford Focus update. The use of boron steel in the body allowed for a 600-pound increase in payload capacity. The smaller front-wheel drive Transit was rebranded as the Transit Custom to position it against the VW Transporter and Mercedes-Benz Vito. Although the third generation was designed in the USA but never sold there, the new version would be sold in both Europe and the USA, replacing the existing E-Series. To reduce the number of names Ford uses around the world, the van would be known as the Transit in North America. The E-Series continues to be sold, but only for custom applications like RVs. The usual range of 4-cylinder petrol and diesel engines were available, but in North America Ford added 3.5 litre EcoBoost and 3.7 litre V6 petrol engines along with a 6-speed automatic gearbox. And soon Ford celebrated 50 years of the Transit on the road. But the new Transit wouldn't be built in the UK, with production moving to Turkey. The vehicle that's seen as British as the EastEnders omnibus was no longer designed or built there. As I mentioned before, the Transit is no stranger to crime, but rather than using the van as a getaway car, they were now just simply stealing the contents or even the whole van itself. In 2015, the Transit was the most stolen vehicle in the UK. Despite Ford continually improving the locks, many owners now have to post "no tools left in this vehicle" overnight and add additional locks of their own for heightened security. Over the last 10 years or so, Ford has been looking at alternative fuels for the Transit. They've recently offered both compressed natural gas and liquefied petroleum gas conversions, and in 2017 teased a hybrid version at the Detroit Auto Show that went on sale in 2019. In 2018, Ford worked with DHL to produce a series of all-electric Transits. In 2019, Ford showed off its all-electric smart energy concept in the form of a Transit minibus. It will have a 93-mile range and could charge in just 4 hours. That range might sound a little anemic, but might work for moving people and equipment around small areas, particularly if it's going between known locations with charging points. Ford aims to release it in 2021. The Transit got its mid-cycle update in 2020 with the by now almost obligatory dashboard update, along with sprucing up the range of engines to keep up with the latest advances. All-wheel drive was offered for the first time, and the 6-speed automatic was replaced with a whopping 10-speed automatic. And with Americans' love for ever larger pickup trucks, they combined a Transit pickup bed with seating for 4. Like the humble screwdriver, the Transit is indispensable as a work tool. And like the screwdriver, the Transit has changed immeasurably over the years, but still remains indispensable. I've been doing these videos for about a year now, and mostly people seem to like them, but occasionally I get some comments that say, "Great video, but you look hideous." So I really appreciate people taking their time and telling me about this, because it really wasn't something I was aware about before. I didn't realize that, I was making people cry as I walked down the road. So it's good that people could let me know about this, but I'm afraid it looks like from now on I'm going to have to wear a paper bag over my head. A big thank you to all my patrons for supporting me. To get early advert-free access to new videos or to appear in the credits, please consider supporting me using the Patreon link below from just $1 or 80p a month, and hit that subscribe button to get notified of new videos. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.